If you like the Ravens over the Chiefs on Sunday, I hope it's because of how good they and Coach Harbaugh are in this spot, and not due to Lamar Jackson. Please. The defending NFC champs continue to get no respect from Vegas. Will that trend continue against the Nutty Browns? The Bucks, Chargers, Eagles, and Niners are all home faves this week. We'll let you know why you should bet against them. The Pats and Cowboys are favored by a combined 44 points. Yet, is that number high enough to cover both games? And Tennessee looks for a fifth consecutive win straight up and against the spread over the Jags on Thursday Night Football. We'll go inside that number and all the numbers on the OFN Today with Mark Lawrence of Covers.com for this Thursday, the 19th of September, 2019 on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. Brought to you by Ourlads.com, providing the best pro and college football depth charts in the industry, and Covers.com, featuring live scores, stats, and odds, considered the most convenient and entertaining source for sports news and facts with over 45 million visits a year. All right, Mark, so how did everything go for Week 2 in the NFL for you?
The college football was much, much better than the NFL. In fact, sometimes, Greg, when you get in looking handicapping cards, initially you see the lines that come out, you open up your system book, you pour through it all, and your first opinion that you form is generally the best opinion. My first opinion last week was it was a really good-looking football card that simply, for me, just did not materialize.
All right, well, hey, it happens, and you can't go perfect 17-0 in the NFL. And how many weeks are there in college football now? 15, 16?
Well, there's every team plays 12 games. Some play 13.
Two
then you can throw in the bowl.
So we're at about
yeah, so you could say 14 weeks before we get to the bowl games.
You never know. Soon enough, in the next 10 years, we might be at 17, 18 games in college football, too, if we finally get our real playoff system in. But anyway, let's talk NFL. We'll start with the game tonight, Tennessee and Jacksonville. And as I mentioned at the open, the Titans have beaten the Jags straight up and against the spread the last 2 years, so they're looking for 5 straight. It's a short number. I'm actually a little bit surprised it's only about a point and a half. I also like the fact that Tennessee is at 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 as a favorite on Thursday Night Football, with the Jags starting a rookie at quarterback. And we're not talking about a first, a second, or a third-round quarterback. We're talking about, a rookie that many people are surprised even made the team. I like Minshew, but this is a tough spot for him and the Jags.
Well, I think the reason the number comes so small is, Greg, is that, number one, there's not a lot of love for Tennessee in Vegas these days. Even despite the fact that they beat Cleveland rather handily the first week, nobody in Vegas is really in love with Marcus Mariota. Jacksonville, Gardner Minshew really showed well in his first start last week. It wasn't surprising. They lost the game but got the money. And you generally see that with backup quarterbacks making their first start. The team rallies around him. My concern in this football game is generally they do not fare well in their next start, their second start, largely because the opposition has game film on that backup quarterback. So they know a lot of Minshew's tendencies. I think that could work against them. And I also like the fact that Tennessee has pretty much dominated Jacksonville here of late in the past. They've won and covered 4 straight games. So as tempting as it is to lay Minnesota with this low point spread, I'm going to do it. I like the situation for what it is, and the point spread just, to me, is more affordable. If I can get them less than 3, I'm on the Titans.
Yeah, we talked last week about Tennessee and going against Tennessee. I liked the Colts last week because of the inconsistency from the Titans. I forget what trend we were using, but we were using a trend about that pretty much proved the inconsistency of the franchise. So they got their loss last week. Maybe they come back and get the win this week. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. And then the Jalen Ramsey noise can't be a good thing either for the Jags.
No, it's not. It's a total distraction, unquestionably. And I think all the press that Minshew is getting here of late, Ginsu Minshew, I think is also a bit of a distraction, if you will. Bottom line, again, to me, is that Tennessee is the better football team. It's being priced accordingly in Vegas, and I'm buying the Titans.
All right, now let's go to the game of the week, Baltimore and Kansas City. It's about a 6.5 point spread. And John Harbaugh right now, as a head coach, is 12-2 against the spread with revenge versus an opponent off a division game. And the Ravens are 8-2-1 against the spread in their last 11 as a road dog, including covering last year's game in Kansas City. Same line, basically. They only lost by 3 points. It was a very good football game. It's Lamar Jackson's only regular season loss, all that other stuff that we're hearing coming out of Baltimore. Look, I still think Kansas City's a better team. I don't really think the home field is going to mean too much here. Not to a team that's as mentally tough, well coached like the Ravens. But look, 6 points. It's a pretty big number considering the Ravens are a good football team. I think and with the trends siding with Baltimore, I think I'll probably go that way. I'm not really that sold on taking the Chiefs in this kind of spot over the years with Andy Reid as a favorite in these big games.
What I like to do with Andy Reid and especially the Kansas City Chiefs is to look to go against them after they've won and covered their previous football game for a couple of reasons. Number one, the public is all over Kansas City because of that. This Patrick Mahomes love affair is on right now, and whenever he wins and covers football games, they're first at the window the next week to bet him again. So there's value in fading them off that win and cover. Number two, in the Baltimore Ravens, you're talking about the number 2 team that's ranked overall in total defense in the NFL. They were number 1 in the preseason in scoring defense. They only allowed 8.8 points a game during the preseason. This defense is for real. I think it's head and shoulders above Kansas City's defense. And number 3, you mentioned Lamar Jackson played here last year. He went into Arrowhead, lost a very close 2-point game, if you will, in December in the football contest. He will not be intimidated by the fans in Arrowhead, which they say can be the most intimidating stadium in the National Football League because of all the sound levels there. But he's been here. He's done that. I'm going to back the defensive dog with you in Baltimore. Take the points, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset here.
I think that what we saw on Sunday and what we've been hearing this week with the media regarding Lamar Jackson, I think we're getting lazy journalism because – and look, I can understand if – you don't have time to watch almost every play of every game. But when you're in that spot, try not to comment on it, though. When I was hearing over the last couple of days about how great Lamar Jackson is, and what they wanted to point out was his really only good throw on Sunday, which was the pass on 3rd down that kept that last drive alive, that put an end to the game. It was a great throw down the sidelines to Brown, no doubt about it. But if you watched the game, the entire game, he didn't have a good game. He was erratic Lamar Jackson. He wasn't as good a crisp as he was week 1. So I think what you got was a lot of journalists that didn't watch the whole game. They just saw that Lamar Jackson won again. He ran for a lot of yards. Oh, look at that great throw in a key spot. Hey, he's great. I'm not sold yet on Lamar Jackson as this superstar quarterback. I'm sorry. I need a lot more evidence against really good competition. This is a nice game and a good start for that. I still don't think this would be a measuring stick game for me. The Chiefs' defense isn't exactly a defense that I'm too worried about. But to me, Lamar Jackson, I just think he's got a ways to go before I feel confident that he's going to be even anywhere as good as Michael Vick was.
Well, if you go back and take a look at our Heisman Trophy winners of late here, Kyler Murray last year, Baker Mayfield before that, Lamar Jackson before that, their one common denominator they have is they are playmakers.
Sure.
Yes. Baker Mayfield has the cannon arm, the accuracy. There's no question about that. It appears that Kyler Murray may have that same accuracy as he throws the football and a pretty strong arm. But the bottom line is they create plays, and they create plays on the run during the course of the football game, and they're winners. All 3 quarterbacks were. That's the reason they won their Heisman trophies, is they were winners, and they generate points for their offenses. I'm not going to take that away from Lamar Jackson. He's not the prettiest passer. There's no question about that. But the bottom line, again, here is he's getting the job done in Baltimore, and he's improving with each and every game. And again, I like this experience that he has having played against this Kansas City team
Now,
last year.
one of the 4 home favorites I mentioned at the top, the Chargers against Houston, they're a 3-point favorite, so it's a low number. So I'd feel a little bit better with the Chargers if I was thinking about taking them in that spot. But they're 9-18-1 against the spread in the last 28 as a home favorite. That's not a surprise considering where they've played the last few years. They just don't have a home field. And so I would be very confident regarding them as, in any way, shape, or form because they're playing at home. I would just say, okay, do I think they're a better team than Houston? This is just a game I would just have to stay away from because these are a couple of evenly talented teams that I don't see anything here that sticks out either way. I probably lean a little bit more towards Houston because I think they're a little bit better than the Chargers. That's just me. But it's a game I'm going to stay away from.
I'm going to look at the Chargers in the football game here for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think to a man they're really PO'd about losing the football game last week. They should be undefeated on the season here coming home where there's not much of a home field advantage. We've talked about that before in the past about the lack of support these Los Angeles teams get at home. But if you take a look at history, and I like to open up the history book, the LA Chargers are the AFC South Division's bitch. They own the AFC South since their inception. The LA Chargers 16-3 straight up and 17-2 against the spread against teams out of the South. I think nothing can work better for them than to bring one of those opponents in here this week after that tough loss last week. And you got Houston has shown pretty gutsy here, but they're coming off a tough 1-point win their last football game. They're 0-5 to the spread in their history, doing just that, coming off a 1-point win here. I like the Chargers. I think the price is affordable. It's down to -3 as we speak. I'll lay the 3 points with the Bolts.
And if they win, they'll be 3-1 because they got the Dolphins next week. And by the way, Houston also 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 in away games after they win a division game. So that's also playing against them in this spot. Rams in Cleveland on Monday Night Football. And you got on Sunday Night Football, you got the Browns coming off a Monday Night Football game. So they do have a little bit of a short work week. You got the Rams coming a little, it's they got to travel, no question about it. But as I said in the open, the lines for the Rams, -1, -2, -3. I'm not seeing much respect for this team. Yeah, Cleveland got the win. I didn't think it was a pretty win. I think the Rams are just a better football team than the Browns. It's nationally televised. I don't see Cleveland winning back-to-back nationally televised games, not against the Rams. And the Browns, by the way, are 1-9 against the spread as a home dog against teams that have a winning percentage of 600 or better.
Well, you take a look at their numbers for the season here, Greg. As poorly as Cleveland played in the opening game against Tennessee, if you look at their statistics offensively and defensively, they're on par with one another, the Browns and the Rams. They're almost dead even, if you will. So they haven't really performed as poorly overall as the perception is on the Cleveland Browns. What I'm going to fade the Rams on in this situation is our Super Bowl loser being a road favorite in a non-division game. Those plays have been like money in the bank. It did not work the first week when they went into Carolina and got out with a half-point spread cover in that game. They won by 3 as a 2.5-point favorite in the football game. I believe it works here for the Browns, who I think found life in that New York Jets football game last week. I know anybody probably in the league could that's last week for the condition and the situation that they were in, but it was still a confidence booster for the Cleveland Browns. And go back in Cleveland's history since their expansion years in 1999 when they came back as an expansion team. The one thing that they've done consistently the most is to pull upsets against better teams. They pulled big shockers against good football teams in the past, and I think they've got that in the making here under the prime time Sunday night lights. I think the Browns upend the Rams.
All right. By the way, McVay also 8-1 against the spread off a straight-up ATS win versus an opponent off a road game. Let's go to the Detroit-Philly game. Philly off of the Atlanta loss. Boy, that was a crazy game at the end. I had Atlanta as one of my top picks last week. they sure made me nervous the way that game went. But they held on to get the win. Matt Ryan did it again in the home opener. So we got that one. Detroit, as you mentioned, got the win over the Chargers. They got some favorite calls by the officials, no question about it. Detroit 5-2 against the spread in the last 7 as a road dog. Eagles 2-7-1 against the spread, last 10 as a home favorite, including not covering against Washington week 1. The spread is between 6 and 7. I'm taking the Lions in this one.
Well, if you take a look at other tendencies in the football game, Greg, you'll note here that Philadelphia has been outstanding under Doug Peterson at home against teams that come in off a win. He's never lost a football game. He's 12-0 straight up and 9-2-1 to the spread. The Lions come in here off that big home underdog win, and when they've done just that, winning a football game straight up as a home underdog, they're just 1-10 to the spread against teams that have revenge. And remember, Detroit beat Philadelphia in their last football game when they played in 2016. I think this is a football game where Philadelphia gets even here. They could well have won that game in Atlanta on Sunday night, but they didn't. They just didn't play a complete football game. I think Detroit comes in here a little bit fat, a little bit content. I think the Eagles roll in this contest.
All right, Atlanta, speaking of the Falcons, first of 3 straight versus AFC South competition. They're at Indianapolis, the home opener for the Colts, 1.5-point favorite in this one. First time they're favorite this year. They have covered 7 straight games in first of back-to-back home games. But more importantly for me, Atlanta 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 as a road dog, including when they got blown out week 1 at Minnesota. I like the Colts in this one because I just think they're a better team, and the line pretty much says the winner wins and also covers the game. So I'm taking the Colts.
I think this should be pro and con this week's edition here because it looks like we're on opposite sides in just about every football game we're talking about. But that's what handicapping is all about. Everybody has an opinion.
Makes me nervous. And, I'm going the exact opposite of you. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble this week.
I'm going to agree with the Falcons in this football game here. Confidence-building win, if you will, over the Eagles here. The Colts have not fared well in home opening games the last 6 years, none of them, both straight up and against the spread. And they're lucky that Tennessee Titans didn't convert on a 4th and 2 with 15 seconds left, or they'd be 0-2 themselves. So they could feel a little bit fortuitous because of that. But I like Atlanta Falcons in this particular spot here. They're 7-1 to the spread away from home, off of a home game, taking on an opponent that comes off a road game. So switch the sites in the last game for both teams. The Falcons are 7-1 to the spread. Personally, I think they're the better football team. They win the game and take home the money.
All right, let's go to Denver and Green Bay. Now, I got to tell you right now, this could be my favorite game of the week. I'm getting 3-1 money line on the Broncos. I just think Denver is, in my opinion, every bit as good as the Packers. The Packers to go 3-0 and the Broncos to go 0-3. I'm just not seeing it. Packers 0-4 straight up and against the spread their last 4 after they take on the Vikings. I think that's going to go 0-5 straight up and against the spread. I think Denver finally gets a win. They deserved to win last week, didn't get it. They're going to be hungry and desperate to make sure they don't go 0-3. So I'm taking the Broncos and the money line at 3-1 to beat the Packers.
Here we go on the opposite side of another football game here. I'm going to be with the Green Bay Packers in this football contest here. I like the fact that they've gotten off to this pretty good start here, despite the fact that their offense hasn't really shown up here of late yet. They're still getting used to, if you will, the new coach, the new offense, the new playbook. That will come around. They'll get Zach Taylor's offense down here pretty soon, but it's the defense that's been sparkling for the Green Bay Packers. And it's a defense for Denver that's been lacking thus far this football season. Not one sack by the Denver Broncos thus far this football season. That's with a Vic Fangio coached football team. That's kind of amazing to me. Lacking a sack. Now, if this offensive line protects Green Bay and that streak continues here, I think it's lights out for the Broncos. I'll say this, Joe Flacco is riding a 5-game losing streak coming into this football game here. His last 5 starts, he's lost all 5 games in a row. He's also 1-7 straight up into the spread in his career against opponents that are coming off back-to-back wins when his team's off a straight-up favorite loss. And you flip it all around, you talked about Zach Taylor here. New coaches that start out the season 2-0. in their first two football games. They're 19-6-1 to the spread in game 3 of the season. That will apply to the Green Bay Packers here. I think the Packers are going to finally open this offense up, and I think they go to 2-0 in the football season. Denver goes to 3-0, and Denver goes to 0-3.
All right, now quickly on these quarterback games, because there are 4 games with quarterback issues. You have the Saints in Seattle. What do you do in a game like this? Because with Breeze, when you take a look at the Saints and all the trends that are associated with and the stats that have been associated with the Saints over the years, Breeze has been there for a long time. You take him out of the equation. Do you handle the trends and the stats differently?
You know, my theory on this, with all these new replacement quarterbacks coming in, a lot of them playing this week, are, again, rallying around the backup quarterback with the star being out. I think we're going to see a lot of that this particular week with New Orleans and with Pittsburgh as well in football games this week. And you're talking about Teddy Bridgewater. If he indeed gets the start, it looks like he's going to ahead of Taysom Hill. I think they're going to split and play a lot of equal time in the football game. But remember, Teddy Bridgewater was a Pro Bowl quarterback, and look at his record as a starter in the National Football League. He's 24-8 against the spread. He's really, really knocked down the number, has Bridgewater, in the starts that he did get. I think this move is going to be beneficial for New Orleans in the long run. With Breeze being out, we're going to find out they're going to get a little bit more experience from their backup quarterbacks here. And when Breeze comes back, most likely after the bye week, I think New Orleans will be in prime position to make a big playoff run.
Out of those other 3 games, Pittsburgh, the Giants, and potentially it looks like Carolina with Newton, I would have to say that I do feel the most confident. Actually, out of those 4 games, I'm the most confident with Pittsburgh. You take a look at how experienced they are in this spot, playing against the big teams on the road as dogs. They're very successful. The numbers are real good. And then on the flip side, the Niners have dropped 11 straight as home favorites and 0-4 when Shanahan's been there, so he hasn't changed that. It's their home opener. It's not like they beat a couple of juggernauts in beating Tampa Bay and Cincinnati. Rudolph actually played okay, and he's not a rookie. It's his second year. Desperation time for Pittsburgh, just like Denver at 0-2. So I think Pittsburgh's not a bad play this week, and the money line's plus 230.
I agree with that. That's an amazing number. 11 straight losses as a favorite by the San Francisco 49ers. It means that they're right now highly incapable of stepping up to the next level. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, has been here and done that. And in fact, when they played teams out of the NFC West, as they're doing this week, and Pittsburgh's coming off a loss, they're 5-1 straight up and against the spread under Mike Tomlin in this particular role. Again, another rally around the quarterback with the missing quarterback here. I'm on Pittsburgh to win this game straight up.
What do we do with those big point spreads? Patriots 22.5, Dallas 21.5. I mean, I leaned a little bit more towards Dallas because Miami is just plain pathetic, and I don't even know if half the team cares. That's a big difference. The Jets, at least defensively, they care. They'll probably get a couple of guys back this week. And to tell you the truth, I think Falk might be a better option than Simeon right now because he knows Gase's offense. I might take the Jets if I was choosing between the two. I can't. I mean, how do you even take the Dolphins in any of the? I don't care how big the point spread is. Cowboys are 8-1 ATS last 9 off back-to-back straight-up ATS wins, and the big one, the Dolphins are just 4-13 ATS last 17 as a road dog. I got no problem taking Dallas and giving 3 touchdowns.
Well, I'll say this about these big spreads with this team, and we're going to be talking a lot about that this year because Miami's going to be in some absurd roles all football season long, and deservedly so. In my database, NFL underdogs of 20 or more points, collectively they're 10-3 against the point spread. What it means is the favorite generally tends to play down to their level. And we saw that last week with New England. I know New England got in and out of Miami with a 43-0 win last week. But if you tuned into that game in the third quarter, they were only up 16-0 in the football contest. And if Miami wasn't as inept as they were, their offense allowed 2 touchdowns. It was ridiculous. It could well have been a different story here. I think of the 2 games, I would more likely lean to the Jets in that football game because I think New England is really overrated. this football season here. And they're still going to be adapting to life with or without Antonio Brown. That's an absolute mess, that soap opera that's going on there right now. I can't help this football team. But collectively, put them together here. I say you play both of the dogs or you don't play the favorites, one or the other.
And Minnesota, just want to add Mike Zimmer because we talked about him a couple of weeks ago, and he came through. And it looks like this is another good week to go with them. The team is 22-8-2 against the spread at home as a favorite, with Mike Zimmer as the head coach, including the win week 1 against Atlanta. And Zimmer is 18-2 ATS as a home favorite versus non-division opponents, including the win week 1 against Atlanta. Those are big numbers. And then on the flip side, Oakland 4-14 ATS. Last 18 is a road dog. The spread is 9. It might get to 10 by Sunday.
I think it will be 10 by Sunday here. They saw Minnesota play really good, gutsy defense against Green Bay last week. They shut them out in the second half of the football game. They're really kind of upset themselves, Minnesota, coming home off that loss. And those numbers you mentioned about Zimmer are really, really terrific numbers. He's an ATM machine of all the coaches in the National Football League. And when he's at home in those non-division games and he's off the loss, like he is this particular week, he's been there 8 times. He's won the game and the money all 8 times. I'm with you with Minnesota here. I would say to anybody watching this show, get down on Minnesota before it gets to -10 because it will by Sunday.
And then lastly, maybe we can go the opposite one more time. I don't know. Maybe. But on Monday Night Football, Chicago's a 4-point favorite against the Redskins. Redskins have dropped 7 straight ATS on Monday Night Football. I think it's going to be 8 straight. Bears are only a 4-point favorite. I mean, you're talking about one of the better teams in the NFC versus one of the worst teams in the NFC. So I got no problem giving those points on Monday Night Football.
Well, the Chicago Bears look to be much the better team, the playoff team, the Washington Redskins, a cellar dweller, if you will, bottom of the barrel drag type of a football team. And yes, they have lost the money 7 times in a row, Monday Night Football, but they're also 5-0 the last 5 games of the money in this series against Chicago. They're also 8-0 against the spread when they have a losing record, and they're coming off back-to-back losses, taking on a 500 or better team. I'm going to be with the Redskins in this football game. I think for the fact that
one more we go against each other.
We have to close this out being on the opposite side. We can't go out together here on the same games. And I like the fact that this is a Monday night primetime game where if Washington's going to play a good football game, I think they'll dig down on primetime football.
If the Bears lose this game, they might be done for the year because that NFC North is a lot tougher this season.
Like I said in our newsletter right up here, Mitchell Trubisky is now on the hot seat in Chicago, and if he doesn't win, they're likely to trade him in for Monica Lewinsky.
You know what he reminded me of? I said this last year. He reminded me of Mark Sanchez, a guy that gets off to a good start, but levels off and is a product of his defense. And in a couple of years, we could see him on ESPN, just like Mark Sanchez.
That's a great parallel. I think he does look a lot like Mark Sanchez, and that means his career will be shorter than it will be longer.
Okay, Covers.com, Mark. What do you got for everybody, including, of course, as we mentioned at the top, college football?
Well, right now we've posted a lot of great articles, good reading at Covers.com, and all my football games will be posted online at Covers.com. You can buy those games, both college and football. I'm going to use a big play in the National Football League, a Game of the Month play Sunday. Check it out at Covers.com.
Thanks a lot, Mark. We'll talk to you again next Thursday.
Hey, my pleasure as always, Greg. Enjoy the games.